starshine lights my way to bed. Magic rainbows glisten in my head. Just like a child, I live in Wonderland. All my dreams are coming true. Heavy shackles used to hold me down.
I am doing a different type of video today. I am going to start a playlist of sewing hints and tips. They're going to be very short videos, just a few minutes long, and it's just where I'm going to be sharing some hints and tips for things that I've picked up over the years whilst I've been sewing, to make sewing a little bit easier. So I'm going to share 3 hints or tips in each short video, and what would also be great is if you could share any hints and tips that you've learned over the years through your sewing. If you could add them into the comments below, and link to, if you've got any videos or if you've got any blog posts, I can link back to those when I share the videos, but to help spread the word on what can make sewing easier. So the first thing that I want to tell you about is in relation to changing the thread on the overlocker. So I am not so much lazy when it comes to threading my overlocker, because I've got a baby lock machine where it pretty much threads itself. It's one of the air jet ones where you press the button and it threads itself, but more so the cost. So I really like to use quality Guttermann thread in my overlocker, rather than the cheaper spools of thread that you can buy for just a couple of pounds, because I do find it makes such a huge difference using quality thread. So for that reason, I pay about £8 a reel. So if I need 4 reels of thread on my overlocker, that's a pretty expensive job. So I have got a set of white and a set of black that I use, but then if I am making a garment where I actually use the overlocker to construct the garment, what I discovered is that you only need to change the thread to match the colour of the garment on one of the spools, and that is the left needle. So I'll just insert a picture in now to show you what I mean. So what you do end up with is a different colour thread on the inside, and that doesn't bother me at all. So if I'm using a darker colour fabric, I'll use the black thread. If I'm using a lighter colour fabric, I use the white thread, but then I change the left needle to match the garment. So I'm just going to show you an example. So this is a top that I've recently sewed up purely using the overlocker, and I'm just going to turn it inside out and show you. I used white thread to in my overlocker machine, but then what I did is used a grey thread. You might not be able to see it that clearly because the sun's glaring in, but I've used grey thread in the left needle, so along that seam there, along that stitch line is grey, and then what that means is on the right side of my garment, all you can see is the grey thread, not any white. And of course on this it is white on the inside anyway, so the white overlocker thread worked perfectly, but I wanted the grey on the outside to match. So that was tip number 1. Tip number 2 is in relation to inserting a concealed or an invisible zip, and my top tip there is to use both a standard zipper foot and a concealed or invisible zipper foot. So what I will do when I am adding my zip, what I will do initially is baste it in place using the standard zipper foot. So you're not going to get right up close like you do with a concealed zip. It's just going to keep it in place to make it easier to sew. Once I've tacked it in place using the standard zipper foot, I can remove all the pins, and then I can sew it again using the concealed zipper foot. And what I find by doing it that way is, because I haven't got the pins in holding the zip in place, the zip stays perfectly in place when you are sewing it with the concealed zip, whereas with the concealed zip foot, whereas if you are trying to do that where it's just pinned in place, you find that the zip will move all over the place and it will end up a little bit wonky. That's worked, zips used to be my absolute nemesis, but that method has worked absolutely perfectly every time. I do plan on adding a tutorial on how I insert a concealed zip just as soon as I get to do some sewing in the daylight hours. The next tip that I wanted to share is in relation to sewing straight seams. So my biggest tip, and it took me quite a while to learn this, is never ever look at the needle while you're sewing. What you always want to be doing is looking at the guide on your sewing machine, and I'll just insert a picture with what it's like on mine, and watch that the fabric stays lined up with that area of your machine rather than watching the needle, because you'll find if you're watching your needle you'll go wobbly and you won't have a nice straight seam, whereas if you are just looking at the edge of the fabric, making sure that's butted up to the level where it needs to be, I find that my seams are perfectly straight every time. If you don't have one of the seam guides on your sewing machine, there's lots of different tools and methods that you can use. That you can buy little metallic things that stick on your sewing machine. Some people will insert a bit of washi tape or something like that with where their fabric needs to run. So yeah, there's loads of different methods that you can use. So that's it, that's my 3 hints and tips for today. I do have some more hints and tips up my sleeve which I will share in future videos, but as I say, if you can add in the comments any hints and tips that you would like me to share in the videos, that would be great. Thanks for watching and I will see you soon. Bye!
Magic rainbows glisten in my head. Just like a child I live in Wonderland. All my dreams are coming true. Heavy shackles used to hold me down. Now my feet don't even reach the ground.